I had always trusted her completely, but that day everything changed. It started innocently enough, a casual conversation about her upcoming trip. But as I skimmed through the documents she had left on the kitchen counter, my heart sank. The itinerary wasn't just a list of travel destinations. It was a meticulous plan, detailing meetings and rendezvous with people I had never heard of, in places I knew she had no reason to visit. My mind raced, trying to piece together the fragments of a reality that didn't fit. I confronted her as soon as she walked through the door, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and betrayal. Her face, usually so calm and composed, turned pale, her eyes darting away as I laid out the evidence. The argument that followed was explosive, filled with accusations and tears, each word more cutting than the last. She insisted it was all a misunderstanding, but her evasions only deepened my suspicion. The room was charged with a tension so thick it felt like the air itself was about to snap. Every part of me wanted to believe her, but the truth seemed to slip through the cracks of her explanations like sand through fingers. In that moment, I was left grappling with a shattered trust, wondering if the woman I had planned a future with was someone entirely different from who I thought she was. The room was heavy with an unspoken tension, each breath they took filling the silence that had settled between them. John and Jenny sat at the kitchen table, the place where they'd shared countless meals and dreams, now a battleground of broken trust. John's gaze was fixed on Jenny, his heart pounding with the weight of his emotions. He leaned forward, trying to steady his voice, but the anger and hurt were palpable. "Jenny, this isn't just about a trip. It's about the future we've been building together. What's this trip really about?" His words were laced with frustration, each syllable carrying the sting of betrayal. Jenny's eyes flickered with a mixture of guilt and defensiveness. She shifted uneasily in her chair, her fingers nervously tracing patterns on the table. "John, I never intended for any of this to come between us. The trip is crucial for my career." Her voice faltered as she struggled to find the right words, her explanations feeling hollow in the face of John's mounting doubts. "Crucial for your career?" John interrupted, his voice rising. "You've been so secretive, and now I find all these plans that don't add up. It's not just about where you're going, it's about what you're hiding." The room seemed to contract with each accusation, the air thick with the gravity of their unraveling trust. Jenny's attempts to reassure him only seemed to dig the chasm deeper. "I swear it's not what you think. There are people I need to meet for professional reasons, but it's not—" Her words trailed off, leaving a void that was filled with John's mounting skepticism. "How am I supposed to believe that?" John's voice cracked, betraying his raw emotion. "You've kept so much from me. How can I trust anything you say now?" The conversation stretched on, each sentence a painful exploration of their fractured relationship. They delved into the potential consequences of Jenny's trip, discussing how it might affect their trust, their future, and the very essence of their life together. The dialogue was intense, each word a reminder of the distance that had grown between them. John's heart ached as he navigated the fine line between wanting to believe in a future with Jenny and the fear of further deception. The discussion was a precarious tightrope, where every choice seemed fraught with the potential to either heal the rift or drive them further apart. The decision they faced was not just about the trip, but about the foundation of their relationship, and whether they could rebuild the trust that had been so brutally tested. As the conversation wound down, the room remained filled with the heavy weight of unresolved emotions, leaving John and Jenny standing at a crossroads, each moment a reflection of the uncertainty that now defined their future. After Jenny departed for her trip, the farmhouse, once echoing with the warmth of shared laughter and conversation, seemed to settle into an eerie silence. John stood at the threshold of their home, staring out at the expanse of land that stretched before him. The world outside felt vast and overwhelming, but it was also his domain, a place where he could channel his turmoil into something tangible and productive. With Jenny gone, the emptiness of their shared space became a stark reminder of the decisions he needed to make. He threw himself into the work of the farm with a renewed sense of purpose, each task a means of distraction and, perhaps, a path to self-discovery. John began by assessing the state of the land, noting areas that needed improvement, and planning out projects that had long been on his to-do list. The barn, which had once been a place of occasional repairs, was transformed into a hub of activity. He repaired broken fences, cleared debris, and began upgrading the equipment that had seen better days. It was as if each improvement was a step away from the lingering doubts and heartache that Jenny's departure had left in its wake. His days were filled with the rhythmic sound of work, the clanging of tools, the steady hum of machinery, and the rustle of the wind through the fields. John found solace in the routine, a comforting counterpoint to the chaos of his emotions. As he worked, he contemplated his future. The dreams he had once shared with Jenny now interlaced with the solitude of his current reality. The farm, once a backdrop to their life together, began to take on a new significance. It was no longer just a place of shared memories. It was a symbol of his resilience and independence. John also began to consider the changes he wanted to make to his living situation. He renovated the kitchen, adding modern touches that made the space feel fresh and new. The living room, where they had spent countless evenings together, was redecorated to reflect his own tastes and needs. Each renovation was not just a physical transformation, but also a metaphorical one, marking a shift from the past and embracing a new chapter of his life. As the days turned into weeks, John's routine became a source of both healing and revelation. The farm flourished under his care, mirroring his own journey of growth and adaptation. He found himself thinking more about his future, not just in terms of the farm, but in terms of who he wanted to become and what he wanted from life moving forward. The solitude offered clarity, and the hard work provided a sense of accomplishment and control. John's focus on the farm and his improvements to his living situation were not just about filling the void left by Jenny's departure. They were about creating a future that was distinctly his own. With each project completed and each decision made, he felt a sense of empowerment and possibility. The future was no longer defined by the uncertainty of his relationship, but by the potential he saw in his own endeavors and the life he was building for himself. As the days stretched into weeks and John settled into his new routine, he felt a growing urge to create something truly unique on his farm, something that symbolized not only his resilience, but also his commitment to self-sufficiency and innovation. The idea of building a small cave home had been a dream of his for years, a project that combined practicality with a touch of whimsy, merging modern living with a timeless sense of ruggedness. Now, with Jenny's departure and the clarity that came with it, he decided it was time to make that dream a reality. John chose a secluded spot on the edge of his property, where the land gently sloped down into a natural cave formation. It was an ideal location, providing a natural shelter that he could enhance with modern amenities. The cave's cool stone walls would offer an excellent foundation for the home he envisioned, a sanctuary where he could escape and recharge. The construction began with clearing the area around the cave, ensuring a stable foundation and proper drainage. John's initial work was meticulous. He reinforced the cave's entrance with sturdy supports and began excavating to expand the interior space. Every evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, John would be found hard at work, his hands stained with the evidence of his labor. The rhythmic sound of his tools and the steady hum of machinery became the soundtrack to his transformation of the cave. Once the basic structure was secure, John turned his attention to the interior. He designed the cave home to be both functional and comfortable, blending modern amenities with the natural charm of its surroundings. The space was divided into distinct areas: a cozy living room with a wood-burning stove, a small but fully equipped kitchen, and a bedroom with large windows that framed views of the farm's expansive landscape. He installed solar panels to provide electricity and used high-efficiency insulation to keep the space warm in winter and cool in summer. John's attention to detail was evident in every aspect of the cave home. The walls were lined with natural stone, left rough in some places to maintain the cave's rustic feel, but smoothed and polished in others to create a more refined look. He incorporated reclaimed wood for the flooring and cabinetry, adding a touch of rustic elegance. The lighting was thoughtfully designed to highlight the cave's natural features while providing a warm, inviting glow. As the weeks passed, and the cave home began to take shape, John found a profound sense of satisfaction in the project. It was more than just a construction effort, it was a manifestation of his resolve and creativity. The home stood as a testament to his ability to adapt and thrive, a physical representation of his journey from heartbreak to self-reliance. The completion of the cave home was marked by a small but meaningful celebration. John invited a few close friends and neighbors to share in the milestone, showcasing the fruits of his labor. The gathering was filled with laughter and admiration, a chance for John to share his achievement and enjoy the support of those who had been with him through his trials. In the quiet of his new home, John found a deep sense of peace. The cave, once a simple natural formation, had been transformed into a personal haven, a place that embodied his spirit and determination. It was not just a home. It was a symbol of his journey and his ability to turn a challenging situation into an opportunity for growth and innovation. The sky was an ominous shade of gray, a harbinger of the chaos that was about to unfold. John had been working on the final touches of his cave home when the wind began to pick up, howling through the fields and sending the tall grass into frantic waves. He glanced at the darkening clouds, a sense of foreboding settling in his gut. Within minutes, the wind transformed into a relentless roar, and the tornado touched down with a ferocity that defied description. The tornado ripped through the landscape with a malevolent force, tearing through John's farm as if it were made of paper. The barn, which had been a symbol of his hard work and dedication, was reduced to splinters, its once sturdy frame splintered and scattered. The fields, which had been meticulously tended, were now a tangle of debris and uprooted crops. The cave home, which John had poured his heart into, was left battered, its newly finished exterior scarred by the storm's fury. As the tornado moved on, John emerged from his temporary shelter, his heart pounding with a mix of relief and dread. The sight before him was almost surreal. His farm, a place that had once symbolized hope and renewal, was now a landscape of destruction. He knew that the damage was extensive, but there was no time to waste. He had to ensure the safety of himself and his neighbors, especially Fiona, who lived nearby. Fiona's home had also been caught in the tornado's path. John had always known Fiona as a kind and resourceful neighbor, someone who had been supportive during his own trials. Now, as he made his way over to her property, he was driven by a sense of urgency and solidarity. The damage was severe. The roof of her house was partially torn off, and debris was scattered across her yard. John and Fiona, though initially overwhelmed by the destruction, quickly realized that their priority was to assess the damage and ensure everyone's safety. They began by checking for any immediate hazards, such as downed power lines and gas leaks, and made sure that all occupants were accounted for and unharmed. The two worked side by side, their efforts a testament to their resilience and community spirit. With the immediate dangers addressed, John and Fiona turned their attention to the daunting task of damage assessment. They walked through the remnants of both properties, cataloging the damage and making a plan for the necessary repairs. The task was monumental, but they were determined to tackle it together. The tornado had spared their lives, and they were resolute in making the best of their circumstances. As they worked, their conversations were filled with a mix of practical concerns and mutual support. They discussed temporary fixes to secure their homes and ensure basic needs were met, such as securing tarps over damaged roofs and arranging for emergency supplies. Neighbors and friends soon joined the effort, rallying around John and Fiona to help with the cleanup and repair. The days that followed were a blur of hard work and camaraderie. John and Fiona coordinated with local aid organizations and volunteers, organizing relief efforts and pooling resources to address the most pressing needs. The community's response was overwhelming, with people coming together to support one another in the face of adversity. Despite the exhaustion and the magnitude of the task at hand, John and Fiona found solace in their shared effort. The destruction had brought them closer together, forging a bond that was strengthened by their collaboration and mutual support. As the weeks passed and the cleanup continued, John's farm and Fiona's home began to slowly recover. The process was painstaking, but with each small victory, they could see a glimmer of hope for the future. In the aftermath of the tornado, John and Fiona emerged not only with repaired homes, but also with a renewed sense of community and resilience. The disaster had tested their limits, but it had also highlighted their strength and the importance of standing together in times of crisis. As the storm intensified, the sky became a swirling maelstrom of darkness, punctuated by flashes of lightning that illuminated the chaotic landscape. The wind howled through the trees, and the rain lashed against the windows with an unrelenting fury. Inside John's cave home, the comforting warmth and stability provided a stark contrast to the tempest raging outside. John had been busy preparing for the storm's arrival, ensuring that the cave was stocked with supplies and that every nook and cranny was sealed against the elements. His thoughts kept drifting to his friends and neighbors, who were facing the same fury of the storm, but without the sanctuary he had managed to create. When he heard the distant rumble of thunder growing louder, he made a decision. His newly renovated cave home wasn't just for him. It was a place where he could offer safety and comfort to those in need. The first knock on the door came just as the storm reached its peak. John opened it to find a bedraggled group of friends, drenched and shivering from the relentless downpour. Their faces, etched with concern, relaxed into expressions of relief as they stepped into the dry warmth of the cave. Come in, John urged, ushering them inside. "You're safe here for the night. Let's get you warm and dry." The interior of the cave was a cozy refuge. John had set up a makeshift area with blankets and pillows in the living room, where the wood-burning stove crackled softly, casting a comforting glow. As his friends settled in, John busied himself with preparing hot drinks and simple comfort foods. The kitchen, which had seemed so functional and orderly before, now felt like a hub of hospitality, with steaming mugs of cocoa and hearty soups providing warmth and solace. As his friends gathered around, John took a moment to address the group, his voice firm yet reassuring. "I know this storm is intense, and it's not safe out there. You're all welcome to stay here tonight. We'll hunker down together and make sure everyone's safe and comfortable." His words were met with grateful nods and expressions of relief. The storm's fury seemed to fade, if only a little, as the warmth and camaraderie of the cave home provided a sense of calm. Throughout the night, John's cave became a haven of laughter and shared stories, a temporary respite from the storm's terror. The sound of the wind and rain outside was a constant reminder of the chaos beyond the walls. But inside, the atmosphere was one of solidarity and comfort. John moved among his friends, checking that everyone was warm, offering blankets, and ensuring that the provisions were plentiful. His actions spoke louder than words, reflecting a deep-seated sense of responsibility and care for those around him. As the storm raged on, John's cave home stood as a beacon of safety and warmth amidst the chaos. His friends were touched by his generosity, their initial anxiety gradually giving way to a sense of peace and security. The night passed with a sense of shared resilience, the storm outside a distant echo compared to the warmth and safety within. By morning, the storm had begun to wane, leaving behind a battered but still standing landscape. The sun broke through the clouds, casting a hopeful light on the world outside. John's friends, now rested and dry, prepared to return to their own homes, grateful for the sanctuary he had provided. As they gathered their things and said their goodbyes, John's heart swelled with a quiet pride. His cave home had not only been a refuge from the storm, but also a testament to the strength of community and the importance of looking out for one another in times of need. With a final wave and a promise to check in on each other, John watched as his friends left, knowing that despite the challenges the storm had brought, the bonds forged and strengthened within those walls would endure long after the weather had cleared. As the first light of dawn crept through the remnants of the storm, casting a soft glow on the battered landscape, John's cave home buzzed with the hum of activity. His friends, having gathered around the kitchen table, were engaged in a focused discussion about the road ahead. The storm had left its mark, but now, amid the warmth and safety of the cave, the conversation had turned to recovery and rebuilding. John poured coffee into steaming mugs, the rich aroma mingling with the residual scent of rain and wet earth. The group, though weary from the night, was animated and determined, their spirits buoyed by the prospect of working together to restore what had been lost. The devastation had been widespread, affecting both John's farm and several neighboring homes, including those of his friends. The table was strewn with maps, notebooks, and emergency repair guides. Each friend had their own area of expertise and perspective, contributing to a comprehensive plan for recovery. Mark, a local contractor, laid out the initial blueprint for structural repairs, his practical approach providing a solid foundation for the discussions. "We need to prioritize the most critical repairs first," he explained, pointing to a map of the affected area. "Let's start with securing the homes and ensuring that everyone has access to basic utilities." Samantha, who had experience in community organizing, took the lead in coordinating volunteer efforts and resource allocation. "We should set up a central point where people can come to get information and offer help," she suggested. "We can use the community center as a hub for organizing volunteers and distributing supplies. It'll help streamline the efforts and ensure that no one is left out." John nodded in agreement, his mind already racing through the logistics. "That sounds good. I'll make sure to coordinate with local suppliers to get the materials we need, and we should reach out to any local businesses that might be able to donate or provide discounts." His determination was palpable, driven by a sense of responsibility to both his farm and his friends. Jenny, who had joined the group after her trip, offered insights from her perspective as someone who had managed logistics for similar recovery efforts in the past. "It's crucial that we keep everyone informed and involved," she said. "Regular updates on progress and clear communication about what's needed will help keep morale high and ensure that everyone knows where they can contribute." As the discussion continued, the group mapped out a detailed plan for the days and weeks ahead. They identified specific tasks and assigned responsibilities, ensuring that each member's strengths were utilized effectively. The rebuilding efforts would involve a combination of immediate repairs to make homes livable again and long-term projects to restore the community's infrastructure. The coordination among the group members was impressive. They created a schedule for work crews, set up a system for tracking donations and supplies, and established a communication network to keep everyone updated. Each person's contribution was vital, from organizing the volunteer shifts to managing the logistics of material deliveries. Their collective effort reflected a deep-seated commitment to not only recovering from the disaster, but also strengthening the bonds of their community. John glanced around at his friends, feeling a surge of gratitude for their support and collaboration. The storm had tested their limits, but it had also forged a sense of unity and shared purpose. As they finalized their plans and prepared to put them into action, John felt a renewed sense of hope. The path to recovery would be challenging, but with the collective determination and coordination of his friends, he was confident that they would rebuild not just their homes, but their community stronger than ever. The early morning sun cast long shadows across the damaged landscape, highlighting the extent of the storm's wrath. John stood by the front door of his cave home, anxiously checking his watch as he awaited the arrival of the insurance adjuster. The storm had caused significant damage to his farm and home, and the settlement from his insurance policy would be a crucial factor in determining how he could move forward. John's mind raced through the possibilities. The immediate priority was to secure the necessary funds to repair the farm's infrastructure, rebuilding the barn that had been reduced to debris, fixing fences, and restoring the fields that had been ravaged. Beyond the basics, however, John was eager to use the settlement money to make meaningful upgrades that would not only restore his property, but also enhance its value and efficiency. As the minutes ticked by, John reviewed his plans. He had already sketched out ideas for upgrading his machinery, which had seen better days. The storm had underscored the importance of reliable equipment, and he envisioned replacing outdated tractors and tools with newer, more efficient models. These upgrades would streamline his operations and ensure that he was better prepared for future challenges. The insurance adjuster's arrival was marked by the rumble of an approaching vehicle. John's heart skipped a beat as he saw the adjuster step out of a sleek car, briefcase in hand, ready to assess the damage. The adjuster, a middle-aged man with a no-nonsense demeanor, greeted John with a firm handshake and a reassuring nod. "Morning, Mr. Davis. I'm here to review the damage and get started on the claim process." John led the adjuster through the remnants of his farm, pointing out the various areas of damage with a mix of frustration and resolve. The barn was a poignant reminder of the storm's impact, its skeletal remains a stark contrast to the thriving structure it had once been. John also highlighted the damage to the fields, the broken fences, and the battered equipment. As they walked, John explained his plans for the settlement money, detailing his intentions to not only repair the damage, but also to invest in significant upgrades. "I want to use the funds to rebuild the barn, obviously," he began. "But I also want to replace some of my older machinery and make improvements to the farm's infrastructure. I'm planning to install new irrigation systems and invest in better tools to improve efficiency." The adjuster listened attentively, taking notes and occasionally nodding in acknowledgement. "Understood. I'll make sure to document all the damage and consider your plans for upgrades in the assessment," he said. "It's important to ensure that the settlement reflects both the necessary repairs and the improvements you're aiming for." The assessment took several hours, with the adjuster carefully inspecting every area of damage and discussing the details with John. By the time they finished, John felt a sense of cautious optimism. The process had been thorough, and he hoped that the settlement would be sufficient to cover both the repairs and the enhancements he had in mind. As the adjuster prepared to leave, John expressed his gratitude. "Thank you for taking the time to go over everything with me. I appreciate your understanding of the situation and my plans." The adjuster offered a reassuring smile. "You're welcome, Mr. Davis. We'll process the claim as quickly as possible, and I'll keep you updated on the progress." With the adjuster's departure, John was left to contemplate the next steps. He knew that the road to recovery would be long and filled with challenges, but the settlement money, once it arrived, would provide a crucial boost. The prospect of rebuilding and upgrading his farm filled him with renewed determination. John was ready to face the task ahead, confident that with the support of his friends, the insurance settlement, and his own unwavering resolve, he would restore his home and farm to not just their former glory, but to a new level of resilience and efficiency. The aftermath of the storm had left a considerable mark on the community, but the collective spirit of resilience and cooperation was palpable as John and his friends set about the task of rebuilding. With the insurance settlement money on its way, they needed to address immediate needs while awaiting the funds. One of the pressing issues was the replacement of essential materials and the temporary management of power outages. The first step was to procure the necessary materials for repairs. John and his friends coordinated efforts to purchase replacement supplies for both their homes and the farm. They visited local suppliers and hardware stores, buying everything from lumber and roofing materials to insulation and fencing supplies. The urgency of the situation meant they had to act swiftly to ensure that their homes and properties were secure against any further weather disturbances. The logistics of the material replacement were complex but manageable thanks to the group's coordinated efforts. Mark took the lead in organizing the purchases and coordinating with suppliers to ensure that they received the best possible prices and timely deliveries. Samantha worked on managing the distribution of the materials, making sure that each property received what it needed according to the priority of repairs. However, as they delved into the rebuilding process, another challenge emerged: the power outage. The storm had knocked out the electrical grid in their area, leaving homes and businesses without power. This posed a significant problem, particularly for maintaining food supplies and keeping essential appliances running. John had anticipated this issue and had prepared by renting a few generators. These generators would be crucial in keeping refrigerators and freezers operational, preventing food spoilage, and ensuring that their temporary living conditions remained as comfortable as possible. With the help of his friends, John set up the generators, ensuring they were properly fueled and securely placed outside to avoid carbon monoxide buildup. The group established a rotating schedule to manage the generators, ensuring that they were used efficiently and that fuel was conserved. They also made sure to follow safety protocols, such as regularly checking the fuel levels, keeping the generators away from living areas, and monitoring for any signs of malfunction. Inside the cave home, John made adjustments to accommodate the temporary power setup. Extension cords snaked through the rooms, connecting the essential appliances and lighting to the generators. The hum of the generators became a constant background noise, a reminder of the ongoing recovery efforts. With power temporarily restored, John and his friends could focus on salvaging and preserving their food supplies. The refrigerators and freezers remained functional, allowing them to maintain the food they had on hand and minimize waste. The temporary power also enabled them to use other essential appliances, such as heaters and water pumps, which were crucial for maintaining comfort and sanitation in the midst of the ongoing repairs. As days turned into weeks, the power situation gradually improved, with utility crews working tirelessly to restore the grid. The generators, once a symbol of their immediate challenge, became a part of their routine, a tool that helped bridge the gap between the storm's devastation and the restoration of normalcy. John and his friends navigated the challenges with a mix of determination and practicality. The material replacement and use of generators were vital steps in their recovery, allowing them to continue their rebuilding efforts without the added strain of power outages and spoiled supplies. Their collective resilience and resourcefulness shone through, a testament to their ability to adapt and overcome adversity. With each passing day, the signs of recovery became more evident. Homes and farms were slowly being repaired, and the community's spirit remained unbroken. The experience of working together through the immediate aftermath of the storm reinforced the strength of their bonds and their shared commitment to rebuilding and moving forward. The moment John had been waiting for had finally arrived. The insurance settlement, a substantial sum designed to cover the extensive damage from the storm, was officially approved and deposited into his account. It was a critical turning point, providing the financial means to not only restore his property, but also to enhance it in ways he had long envisioned. John sat at his desk, staring at the figures on the settlement check. The relief was palpable, but it was soon replaced by a sense of focused determination. He had already made a list of priorities, and now, with the settlement funds secured, he could move forward with both the immediate repairs and the upgrades he had planned. First on his list was the rebuilding of the barn. The storm had reduced it to a pile of rubble, and its reconstruction was crucial for both operational efficiency and restoring the farm's functionality. John worked closely with Mark, the local contractor, to finalize the plans. They decided to rebuild it using more durable materials and with a design that would better withstand future storms. Reinforced steel beams, impact-resistant roofing, and a more robust foundation were all part of the new plan. John was determined to ensure that the barn was not only restored, but also fortified against potential threats. In addition to the barn, John planned to invest in new machinery. The old tractors and tools, while still functional, had been a constant source of frustration. With the settlement funds, he could replace them with newer, more efficient models. The upgrades would streamline his farming operations, increase productivity, and reduce maintenance costs. John spent time researching the best equipment and negotiating with suppliers to get the most value for his money. But the improvements didn't stop there. John's cave home, which had served as a temporary haven during the storm, was also set for an upgrade. The original design had been a practical response to immediate needs, but John had always envisioned it as a more permanent residence. With the settlement, he could enhance the cave home with additional features that would make it more comfortable and functional. John's plans included installing a more efficient heating and cooling system, adding energy-efficient windows, and expanding the living space to include a dedicated office and a small library. He also wanted to incorporate sustainable features, such as solar panels and a rainwater harvesting system, to further his goal of self-sufficiency. These upgrades would not only improve his quality of life, but also increase the home's value and sustainability. John meticulously reviewed the budget, allocating funds for each project and ensuring that there was enough to cover unexpected expenses. He reached out to various contractors and suppliers, obtaining quotes and setting schedules. The process was intricate and required careful coordination, but John felt a renewed sense of purpose and excitement. The community, too, was buzzing with support and anticipation. John shared his plans with his friends and neighbors, who were eager to lend a hand in the rebuilding process. They offered their skills and resources, contributing to the efforts in various ways, from helping with the construction to providing advice on the best practices for home and farm improvements. As the days turned into weeks, the transformation began. The barn's foundation was laid, and construction crews worked diligently to rebuild it. New machinery arrived and was set up, ready to enhance John's farming operations. The cave home started to take shape, with the new features slowly becoming a reality. John took pride in the progress, knowing that the settlement funds had not only helped him recover from the storm, but it also enabled him to create something better than before. The enhancements were a testament to his resilience and vision, reflecting his commitment to both his home and his farm. Each completed project brought a sense of accomplishment and hope for the future. The rebuilding efforts, supported by the settlement and the collective strength of the community, were not just about restoring what was lost, but about building a more resilient and thriving future. John's journey, marked by the storm's devastation and the subsequent rebuilding, had transformed into a story of renewal and positive change, setting the stage for a new chapter in his life. John stood at the edge of his property, surveying the site where his new house was set to rise from the foundation. The decision to use concrete for the walls was driven by both practicality and ambition. Concrete, he reasoned, would offer unparalleled durability and energy efficiency, making it an ideal choice for the new structure. It would be a significant upgrade over the materials used in the initial cave home, providing better insulation, greater resistance to the elements, and lower long-term maintenance costs. Determined to save on expenses and gain a deeper sense of satisfaction from the project, John decided to tackle the concrete wall construction himself. It was an ambitious undertaking, but John was no stranger to hard work and had always prided himself on his hands-on approach. The process would be challenging, but he was ready to invest the time and effort required to see it through. The first step in the process was to plan and prepare. John spent weeks researching the best methods for pouring and setting concrete walls. He studied various construction techniques, consulted with experts, and even visited a few local projects to gain practical insights. Armed with this knowledge, he meticulously drafted a detailed plan for the wall construction, including measurements, materials, and a timeline for each phase of the project. With the plan in hand, John set out to gather the necessary materials. He ordered high-quality concrete mix, reinforcing steel bars, rebar, and all the tools needed for the job. He also acquired wooden forms, which would shape and hold the concrete in place as it cured. The cost savings from doing the work himself were substantial, but John knew that careful preparation and precise execution were crucial to ensuring a successful outcome. The construction site was bustling with activity as John and his friends began the preliminary work. They laid out the foundation forms and installed the rebar, ensuring that the steel was properly aligned to provide maximum strength. The wooden forms were carefully constructed to create the desired wall shape and size. Each piece of the puzzle was meticulously placed, with John overseeing every detail to ensure everything was aligned correctly. Once the forms and rebar were in place, it was time to pour the concrete. John had scheduled this phase for a day when the weather was expected to be favorable, cool and dry, to allow the concrete to set properly without premature curing. The process was both exciting and nerve-wracking. As the concrete was mixed and transported to the site, John and his team worked quickly to pour it into the forms, using trowels and vibrators to eliminate air bubbles and ensure a smooth, even surface. The curing process was equally important. John monitored the walls closely, keeping them moist and covered to prevent cracks and ensure proper hydration. The concrete slowly began to set, solidifying into a robust and durable structure. During this period, John's anticipation grew as he envisioned the final product, a home with walls that would stand strong and resilient for years to come. As the days passed, the forms were carefully removed to reveal the solid concrete walls. The sight was immensely satisfying, a tangible testament to John's hard work and dedication. The walls were perfectly straight and smooth, just as he had envisioned. The next steps in the construction would involve finishing the exterior, installing insulation, and completing the interior details. But the core structure was now in place. John took pride in his achievement, knowing that the concrete walls represented more than just physical barriers. They were a symbol of his commitment to quality and self-sufficiency. The project had been a significant undertaking, but the results were well worth the effort. The new house, with its durable concrete walls, would provide a solid foundation for the future, blending strength with energy efficiency and embodying John's vision for a better, more resilient home. As the construction continued, John felt a renewed sense of purpose and accomplishment. The decision to use concrete and undertake the work himself had been a defining choice, setting the stage for a new chapter in his life and marking the successful completion of a significant phase in the rebuilding process. The late afternoon sun cast a warm glow over the freshly completed concrete walls of John's new home, their solidity a testament to the hours of labor and meticulous planning that had gone into their construction. The farm was starting to feel like home again, a sanctuary of progress amidst the aftermath of the storm. John was looking forward to settling into his new space and enjoying the fruits of his hard work. However, fate had other plans. John's phone rang sharply, its tone slicing through the calm of the evening. The caller ID displayed an unfamiliar number, but John had a sinking feeling as he answered. The voice on the other end was authoritative and formal. "Mr. Davis, this is Sergeant Thompson from the National Guard. We're calling to inform you that you've been selected for deployment. You'll need to report for duty in the next week." The words hit John like a freight train. His heart sank as he listened to the details of the deployment order. The timing couldn't have been worse. Just as he was beginning to see the fruits of his labor, he was being called away to serve again. It was a duty he had always taken seriously, but the abruptness of the news and the unfinished business at home weighed heavily on him. John took a deep breath and thanked Sergeant Thompson for the information. As he ended the call, he felt a mix of emotions, duty and responsibility mingled with frustration and disappointment. He needed to prepare for the deployment, which included tying up loose ends, making arrangements for the farm, and saying goodbye to his friends. The news of John's deployment spread quickly through the community. His friends, who had supported him through the storm and the rebuilding process, gathered at the farm to offer their support and help with preparations. The atmosphere was somber as they realized the significance of John's departure. John addressed his friends with a mixture of gratitude and regret. "I appreciate everything you've done for me, and I'm grateful for your support through all of this. I wish I could stay and see the house fully completed and settled, but duty calls. I'll be away for a while, but I know you'll continue to look after things here." There were heartfelt hugs and handshakes as John bid farewell. His friends offered their assistance in maintaining the farm and ensuring that everything was in order while he was away. They reassured him that they would keep an eye on things, and their willingness to help eased some of John's worries about leaving his home behind. John spent the remaining days before his departure finalizing preparations. He made arrangements for the care of his farm, ensuring that there were clear instructions for his friends and any hired help. He organized his personal belongings, packed essentials for the deployment, and took one last look at the house and farm he had worked so hard to rebuild. The day of departure arrived all too soon. John stood by his truck, loaded with his gear, as his friends gathered to see him off. The farewell was emotional, filled with well wishes and promises of safe return. John's friends expressed their admiration for his dedication and service, and John, in turn, reassured them of his gratitude and commitment to return as soon as possible. With a final wave and a deep breath, John climbed into his truck and began the journey to his deployment station. The road ahead was uncertain, but he faced it with the same resolve and determination that had carried him through the storm and the rebuilding. The new house, the farm, and the supportive community were left behind, but they were a source of strength and motivation. As John drove away, he reflected on the journey that had brought him to this point. The storm's devastation, the rebuilding efforts, and the deployment call had all been significant chapters in his story. Each challenge had shaped him and tested his resilience, and each step forward had brought him closer to a new chapter in his life. The road stretched out before him, filled with the promise of new experiences and the anticipation of returning to the life he had worked so hard to rebuild. John embraced the uncertainty with courage and hope, ready to face the challenges of deployment with the same determination that had guided him through the trials of home and farm. The deployment had begun with routine assignments and daily drills, but the calm was shattered one fateful day. John's unit, stationed in a volatile region, found themselves in the midst of a coordinated terrorist attack. The serene landscape that had been their operational backdrop turned into a battleground, and the stakes were higher than ever. The assault began just as dawn broke, with a series of explosions and small arms fire echoing through the camp. The attackers were well organized, their intent clear and dangerous. Chaos erupted as soldiers scrambled to their posts, returning fire and trying to assess the full scope of the threat. Amidst the confusion, John's training and instincts took over. His leadership was immediately apparent as he took command, rallying his unit and orchestrating a defense under intense pressure. John's decisions were quick and precise. He assessed the situation, identified key threats, and deployed his squad with strategic precision. His ability to remain calm under fire was crucial, and he guided his team with a steady hand. Through a combination of tactical maneuvering and effective communication, John managed to fortify their position and repel the initial wave of attackers. The battle raged on, but John's leadership shone brightly. He demonstrated exceptional bravery, moving between positions to offer guidance and encouragement to his fellow soldiers. His tactical acumen was evident as he coordinated counterattacks and adapted to the evolving threat. The attackers were persistent, but John's unit, inspired by his resilience and strategy, held their ground with unwavering resolve. Hours later, as the smoke cleared and the dust settled, the attackers had been repelled, and the immediate threat was neutralized. The camp had suffered damage and casualties, but the unit's defense had prevented a greater disaster. The successful repulsion of the attack was a testament to the strength and cohesion of John's leadership and the bravery of his team. Upon returning to base, John was met with a mixture of relief and exhaustion. The ordeal had tested everyone to their limits, but John's role in the defense did not go unnoticed. His commanding officers and peers recognized his exceptional leadership and combat skills. The resilience and strategic thinking he had displayed under fire were exemplary, and his actions had saved lives and preserved critical assets. In a formal ceremony, John was awarded a commendation for his bravery and leadership during the attack. The recognition was a proud moment, acknowledging not only his personal courage, but also the effectiveness of his leadership in a high-stress situation. The promotion that followed was a reflection of the respect and admiration earned from his superiors and comrades alike. John was elevated to a higher rank, a fitting tribute to his dedication and skill in the field. The commendation and promotion were significant, but they were also a reminder of the sacrifices made and the friends lost. The combat action had been a stark reminder of the risks faced by those in active duty and the realities of war. John returned with a renewed sense of purpose and a deeper appreciation for the support of his unit and the strength of his leadership. As he prepared to return home, John carried with him the weight of the experience and the pride of his achievements. The battles fought and the challenges overcome were now a part of his story, and he looked forward to reuniting with his community and continuing the journey he had started before the deployment. The transition back to civilian life would bring its own set of challenges, but John faced the future with the same resolve and courage that had defined his time in combat. The promotion and commendation were not just symbols of his achievements, but reminders of the enduring commitment to service and leadership that had guided him through both the battlefield and the rebuilding of his life at home. John's return from deployment was marked by a whirlwind of emotions. After months away from home, the prospect of returning to a place that had been both a sanctuary and a site of significant personal growth was exhilarating. Yet nothing could have prepared him for the surprise that awaited him upon his arrival. As John's truck rolled up the driveway, he was struck by an unexpected sight. His newly renovated property, which had been a work in progress before his deployment, was now transformed. The exterior, once a patchwork of temporary fixes and ongoing construction, had been completely revitalized. Fresh paint gleamed under the sunlight, and new landscaping framed the home, making it look vibrant and welcoming. The sight was so stunning that John had to blink a few times, unsure if he was seeing things correctly. Fiona, who had been integral in organizing this surprise, had managed to pull off something extraordinary. While John was away, she had coordinated with local businesses, contractors, and volunteers to renovate the property. Donations of materials, discounted labor, and a collective effort from the community had come together to create a space that was far beyond what John had envisioned. The small cave home had been transformed into a warm, inviting residence, with modern amenities, a spacious layout, and thoughtful touches that reflected John's tastes and needs. The interior of the house was just as impressive. The walls were now adorned with elegant finishes, and the once temporary furnishings had been replaced with high-quality, comfortable pieces. Fiona had meticulously overseen every detail, ensuring that the renovations not only met, but exceeded John's expectations. The kitchen, equipped with state-of-the-art appliances and ample counter space, was now a chef's dream. The living areas were open and airy, designed for both relaxation and entertaining. John was overwhelmed with gratitude and emotion as he walked through the renovated spaces. Each room bore the mark of Fiona's dedication and care, and it was clear that she had put her heart into the project. He couldn't help but marvel at the transformation, feeling a profound sense of appreciation for the effort that had gone into making the house a true home. As the initial shock wore off, Fiona appeared, her face lit up with a mixture of nervousness and joy. She had been waiting for John to fully take in the surprise before approaching him. When their eyes met, the depth of their shared emotions was palpable. John pulled Fiona into a heartfelt embrace, his gratitude and love pouring out as he held her close. "I can't believe this," John said, his voice thick with emotion. "This is beyond anything I could have imagined. Thank you. I don't know how you managed all of this, but it's incredible." Fiona looked up at him, her eyes glistening. "I wanted to do something special for you. I know you've been through so much, and I wanted to show you how much you mean to me. This is our home, and I wanted it to be a place where we could both feel settled and happy." The reunion was tender and emotional. John and Fiona spent the evening reflecting on their relationship and the journey they had been through. They talked about the challenges they had faced, both apart and together, and how those experiences had shaped them. Their conversations were filled with vulnerability and honesty, allowing them to address past issues and reaffirm their commitment to one another. As the night wore on, John and Fiona found themselves sitting on the newly renovated porch, overlooking the now serene and beautiful landscape. The stars shone brightly overhead, and the sounds of the restored property, a gentle breeze rustling through the trees and the distant chirping of crickets, created a peaceful backdrop. "We've come so far," John said softly, taking Fiona's hand in his. "I'm grateful for everything we've been through, even the tough parts. It's all brought us here, to this moment. I love you more than ever." Fiona squeezed his hand, her eyes filled with tears of happiness. "I love you too. I'm so proud of everything we've accomplished together. This home, this life we're building, it's all because of us. I'm committed to making our future as wonderful as this surprise." The conversation deepened their bond, solidifying their connection and commitment to each other. The renovations had not only transformed the property, but it also symbolized a new beginning for their relationship. The house, now a reflection of their shared journey and aspirations, became a symbol of their renewed commitment and love. As they looked out at the beautifully renovated home, John and Fiona felt a profound sense of hope and excitement for the future. The challenges they had faced had only strengthened their relationship, and with a home that was truly theirs, they were ready to embrace the next chapter of their lives together.